talkative. Let's get started. Because we don't think an hour is long enough for this bunch of hot wind people. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So first of all, my name is Mark Peacock. My current occupation during the day is VP Marketing Communication, Chief Communication Officer with Linkspring. I do have a night job. I'm also a founding member of Project Haystack and on the board of directors. And to call out to Ken Sinclair, I'm one of his contributing editors as well. And if that's not enough, I'm a happy grandfather who loves his 7-year-old grandson. So that's great. So anyway, here comes, we're going to wait for our other, well, just come on in, sit down. All right. So
You told him that he's buying drinks.
he is buying drinks. So I'm going to introduce everybody here in a few, but a couple things I want to kind of set the stage a little bit. So smart buildings are not new. We are in the midst, though, of the most transformative, compelling period in the last 25 years. We're moving from smart buildings to smarter buildings. This past year, we began to see the movement from smart buildings to smarter buildings, caused by, of course, the pandemic, but more importantly, the new demands from business and the economic side of managing and operating a building. The rules have been rewritten. Suffice it to say that managing and operating buildings today is much, much harder and requires us, everybody in this room, to design, deliver, maintain, and support buildings that are smarter. So to have an open discussion to discuss this, I'm happy to welcome a group of industry veterans, true friends of mine, if you can believe that, and they are, in fact, Marvel superheroes by night. Jeez. So to introduce the panel, let me start on the far left. Ed Merwin, Director of Strategic Business from Tritium. Larry Melton, President, CEO of the Building People. Richard Wedland, from Senior Associate Manager of Operational Intelligence, Burns & McDonnell. Back on that end, Steve Dodd, President, Partner of HVAC Concepts. Trevor Morrison, Vice President, Energy and Connected Real Estate, the Building People. Gary Ahmet, Solutions Architect Extraordinaire from FSD Smart Buildings. And Paul Maximoff from Newcomb Boy. Sorry, I get I'm sorry.
Senior moment.
Senior, it is a senior moment. So one of the things that my friend here, Paul, said in our planning calls, which really has stuck in my mind since he said it, was the combined knowledge on this panel is older than our country. Now think about that for a minute. The combined knowledge is older than the United States. That's pretty darn old if you ask me. So let me give you a layout of what we're going to do. We're going to begin by me asking several different questions to our panel. Yes, they've seen some of those questions, but Mark has a surprise. We have some they have not seen. And then after that, towards the end, we're going to do what I call Mark's lightning round. What this is going to be a series of questions that the only answer the panel can give is yes, I agree, no, I don't agree, or the catch-all is I plead the fifth. So without, and then we're going to end up 30 seconds for them to close out, say whatever they want to say. And each panelist will not answer every question. Everything is at my discretion. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and start with Steve Dodd. Steve, what is a smarter building to you?
Well, Mark, back in the 70s and 80s, we went to smart buildings from pneumatics. So really, the smart building industry started back when pneumatics were phasing out. We started putting some logic and processors behind the operation. Basically, today, it's all about understanding the business and the building in which you're working with, and then architecting solutions that make them more effective, whether it's schools, learning environments, healing environments in hospitals, production and manufacturing and laboratories, product quality in laboratories, et cetera. So understanding that, finding the devices in which they use, right? Pull as much of that data, usable data, in, disseminating it, and then using it to make it more productive and more valuable.
Okay. Now, again, Steve is from the SI point of view. Let me go to Ed from the manufacturer technology supplier. Smarter buildings, what is it, Ed?
Well, I think Steve did a great job of doing that. It's all about, it used to be about technology.
Thank you.
It used to be, and still is, everybody's pushing technologies, more about solutions, I think, and its outcomes. That's what that's what we have to think about first, and then worry about the technology to apply it. So I think today, smarter buildings are being pushed because, like you said, we have to have healthier buildings now. We have to have safer buildings, being cyber safe and physically safe and healthy. So I think that's what's going to be a differentiate. Are they really outcomes that we can pursue versus worrying about throwing a bunch of technology at it?
Okay. Let me get from the engineering perspective, Paul, how about you?
Thanks, Mark. So from an engineering perspective, everything that we talked about is absolutely correct. But I think the trend now is more of an operational focus, utilizing the data as the enabler of business decisions, sharing that data across all different software platforms. So terms that you hear like IDL, independent data layer, it's a repository for all that data. And now you can hook up your different business applications to that, to access that data that you have. So it's more on the operations management side and developing that strategy that makes that data useful to the operation.
All right, Larry, kind of piggybacking on this question, but a little bit different angle here. What's the difference between a smart building and a smarter building?
Everything from the technology side, engineering side, that they just explained, the smarter building is actually when you actually have the results and you're getting there from an operating cost perspective. I think the biggest change that we've not adapted to that we want to talk about, especially today, is the people component. And where you were going with it is it's really enabling better decisions. And what I like to use the phrase propagating new norms is a phrase I always use. I've been using it for about 10, 15 years. And it's really getting the humans in the building to behave differently with the data that's in front of them. Otherwise, what's the point, right? We can connect all the smarter buildings in the world can be smart, but if we're not changing our human behavior and how we operate and maintain, what's the point? So we still have this big problem with this thing we call people.
Richard, again, piggybacking on the same thing, what's the difference between a smart building and a smarter building, at least from your perspective? Again, Richard's from the engineering design perspective.
So for those that may not be familiar with Burns McDonnell, so we're a large AE. And it's been fascinating to participate in conversations with these guys in the space. So very similar, but maybe a little bit different take on things. To us, right, smart buildings are buildings that have any kind of data-driven, actionable insights. The smarter then becomes a continuum that involves the integration of various different operational data insights to produce a more comprehensive view on what's going on. What's fascinating to me is being part of a long-term AE, and we're going to get into some of this, so I don't want to fill in all the answers now, but we have our own challenges as an AE performing in the space of delivering, especially greenfield buildings and whatnot, helping clients achieve smarter. Technology is not the challenge anymore, right? It is, right? All the organizational challenges and issues. And so raising awareness with our clients, which is happening, but then making sure that that awareness manifests itself in an owner's project requirements or their basis of design to make sure that an AE is actually delivering that is the biggest challenge that we face right now.
Before I go into the next question, Gary, I'm going to get you and Trevor here. Just a quick poll. How many people are in here are engineers? A few, great. How about system integrators? Great. How about end users? Great. And another poll, how many people in here, regardless of where you fit in the industry, work in the commercial space? All right, last question, how about the federal space? And it can be both, of course. Okay, good, thank you. So we got a kind of a temperature of some of our audience members. So Trevor, from your perspective, what are the characteristics and the attributes of a smarter building?
So I'm going to start this off with a brief anecdote. I think this panel is going to keep coming back to one word, which is operationalizing. And the other connective tissue to that a number of people mentioned was the people component. So the anecdote is, I was walking a couple years ago in unnamed university in DC, where the senior engineer was discussing a platform, also unnamed, that the C-level presumably had talked him into paying 6 figures a year for whatever SaaS-based agreement and so forth. And I said, great, show me how it's working. And he goes, oh, I turned it off. And I said, you did what now? He goes, yeah, I got sick of getting notifications and my team getting notifications all day long that my buildings were not operating correctly. I know how they're operating. So what I have for you is, I think technology as a whole has now outpaced most portfolio and organizations' ability to operate it. And the problem is generally that strategic objectives from the often still siloed off parts of any organization, we see it across commercial, across government, it's the same story everywhere, is not aligned where you build the requirements for whatever the smart building system is. And frankly, different parts of an organization are talking to energy management or digital twin or what have you, or an AI ML overlay on top of your BAS. And, you find that facility operators aren't trained to operate it. Nobody's able to respond to an ever increasing number of faults or sparks or, ECMs or energy savings opportunities that are identified through an ever proliferating number of platforms piled on top of each other. I think a good system, a characteristic is the requirements are set out in advance in a strategic, sober, deliberate manner, and you build it MSI.
Real quick question on that. Whose responsibility is it to set those characteristics?
It's the owner's responsibility.
Okay. Here, go ahead.
Mark, can I chime in there? Because I think organizationally, one of the biggest dynamics is that most people think it's either in a building owner capacity, it's the CIO or it's the facilities manager or it's the architect engineering group or construction group, right? And the reality is it's all three. One thing, and maybe we can come back to this, not to hijack your question, but it's an important component on the heels of what Trevor said, is the organizational alignment component where your CIO, your facilities team, your construction team, and design team have to work together in unison in what I would call policy and systems. You cannot, let's be real, we can make fun of the construction and facilities folks. I'm a facilities dork, so I can say that, but facilities folks always blame the engineers that you didn't build it right? That disalignment won't work to cover what Trevor just explained, is that without that organizational alignment, you will not have success in designing your building. It's plain and simple for the owner or the organization.
Gary, from your perspective, and again, you've got a very niche area that FSG really has a great footprint in, lots of good credibility and responsibility. From your perspective, how about characteristics and attributes from what you see?
From a smart building to a smarter building?
Yeah.
People. Technology is not the answer. It's not always the answer. People are the answer. What I mean by that is FSG Smart Buildings, we connect thousands of sites. We've been doing data for years, been doing cloud for years. What makes a smart building is people. And it's the ability to take the noise out of the equation and make that actionable data. That's not easy to do. That's not necessarily an AI or a bolt-on all the time. You've got to have human interaction for that. And so I think we're right. I think technology is overrun it. We've got to get more sophistication with our customers, more sophistication with our vendors, our buyers and our sellers, more MSI up front when we're doing the engineering. What we do with some of our customers. So that's going to be the difference. Is it starts at the beginning, right, Paul?
That's right.
But at the end, we're getting a lot of noise, and we got to take care of that. And that's what we got to educate our customers how to remove the noise from the action.
Well, one thing I want to throw in here as far as characteristics and attributes, which quite honestly, I haven't heard you guys talk about, and I'm trying to make this something we as an industry talk about, is the business and the economic side, not just the operational side. The operational side is supposed to produce the business and economic outcomes. When we talk to building owners, regardless if they're office, retail, it does federal, it doesn't matter, is what are those characteristics, what are those attributes as a business do you want the smarter buildings to do for you? So we'll come back to that. All right, next question. Let's start with Ed. How has the concept of smart buildings changed? You're like me, we've been in this industry for a long time. How has it changed?
I think it's got noisier, to be honest with you. Oh, sorry,
My bad.
It's gotten noisier. Everybody's got a different idea of the concept because everybody's throwing around a lot of buzzwords. So, we started off in the 80s. Is it efficient? Is it safe? Is it comfortable? And frankly, I don't think we're still there yet. And we're worried about connecting trash cans when they're full and things like that. And I've got to tell you, and this came back to the people. So I'm going to say the smarter building is what everybody said. Think about the people in the building, the operations. And it also points out today, we still got to train people. People still don't understand all this. Like the person who turned off a $600,000 a year, the CFO probably fainted when he heard that. But the point is, I think what we're starting to see is people out there that are really getting into the training side of training people and making it available to these people in the boiler room. It's really tough to be in the boiler room nowadays. They're worried about just keeping the heat on or keep the cooling working and that sort of thing. So that's where the focus has to be. And we have to fall back into whether that's mechanical design. I don't know. I'd love to hear some feedback on that. But what are we going to do for the person in the boiler room who's going to retire like us someday? And what are we going to do to help train younger people to get into the business and do those sort of things?
Which I think is, that is a key challenge for all of us, is that, I heard the other day that there's something like globally 20,000 positions open in what we all do, regardless, different ones, and they can't find enough people to help fulfill those positions, which is amazing. We're not, the industry's growing, but that's a debate for a whole nother day. Steve, how about you? How have you seen buildings change from smart to smarter?
First of all, take exception to Ed's comment on trash cans. We actually put on some monitors on some dumpster protection. There's a 3-month ROI. Okay. No, in reality, short term, it's less hardware in the field, more data. Right? Just to simplify it, everything now has got better intelligence in it. Between our HVAC systems, our lighting systems, our business systems. That's where the biggest progress is. I agree with Gary. People, the large national laboratories did some studies, and system degradation as a result of human error is about 8% annually. Right? So it's about training the people, right? Be able to stop overriding and changing things to keep that system performance where it is. We are getting smarter, right? And kids coming out of school are more talented, at least on the technical side of things. Now we got to convey that system knowledge to them. That's where we're lacking, because previous generations, we had system knowledge because we all started out by working in the field and had our hands on things. We're getting less of that in today's talent. So that's where I see the differences, right? Is we're getting technically more advanced, but we're showing a significant amount of difference in experience levels.
All right, since you mentioned the three-letter word ROI, perfect intro, thank you for that. So smart buildings have been around since the 1980s. Have we, as an industry, again, not matter what part of the industry everybody plays in, have we proven the ROI? Richard, I'm gonna give you that one first.
So I can say from our perspective, no, right? And why is that, right? Typically, when you hire an AE, right, they deliver a project. You give them, your project requirements, your basis of design. Maybe it's a federal project. You have UFC and UFGS that you have to adhere to. Engineers, they'll even design sequence of operations, but the control space historically for an AE is a black box. Right? You subcontract to an electrical or a mechanical contractor, you maybe give them a pro forma, right? And you leave it up to them to the design, right, the system. So once the building, in this case, is delivered, we're off doing the next building, right? We don't, haven't historically spent too much time in then the operational, right, continuum of that building. And so that's where some of the gap actually comes, right? So in our organization, we have a large commissioning group, which has engineer discipline folks in it. And, they ensure that what the owner, right, paid for is delivered. But still, even that functions more on, say, the functional performance testing of a piece of equipment and not necessarily how the building control system was set up, how it's configured, naming conventions, trending, anything else that's necessary to achieve, right, the smart or the data-driven insight goal or objective that the client has, because a lot of times it doesn't even come up in conversation until it's already been delivered, right? And the client expects or wants to be able to do that kind of stuff. That's like, well, there's a whole bunch of blocking, what we call blocking and tackling, that's going to have to be done before you can even start that journey, that you probably could have reduced up to 30 to 40% of the cost if you had baked that into the actual design, engineering, commissioning, construction, and delivery of that building, right? So from our perspective, right, that's a long-winded way of saying no ROI, because we don't historically function in the operational continuum of that, so it doesn't even come into play.
All right, Larry, you and your organization definitely plays a role in that function. How about your perspective?
Yeah, so I'll get even in more granular, and I'll give you the.
But keep it brief. Keep it brief.
All right, I will. I'll talk fast. I've never been accused of not. So Steve mentioned Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. I'll give kudos to those who are here from the federal sector. And there's a study out there. I encourage everybody to download it. It is a Lawrence Berkeley National Lab study commissioned in 2011, done by the GSA. That study said for every 86 cents per square foot investment, there's a 52 cent per square foot payback. That 52 cent per square foot payback came back with 9 cents of it being energy, 43 cents of it becoming labor. So we're focusing a lot around energy savings and analytics and all these, the shiniest object in the room, so to speak. So the answer is unequivocally no. We haven't seen the return on investment because we haven't made the investment in the people.
Got it.
To be really clear. So I would encourage you all, and I can point you in the right direction to get that as a takeaway. But that is the formula. Now, obviously, adjust for inflation. So multiply that times 1,000. But it just gives you a real granular number. The reality is, no, we have not achieved the return on investment. And now we're debating, well, what is the real return on investment? And now we have issues with occupancy in buildings, but it's just a whole another topic that is another 2-hour session.
All right, let's move on to another subject. Paul, I'm going to start with you. Is planning and designing a smarter building different, and how?
Yes, it is. You start obviously with your core systems in the building. You're going to get into the integrations of those systems, and then possibly bringing in different technologies with those systems. So one of the things we've been talking about here is owner's project requirements, doing use case development and workshops and mapping those type of technologies and systems to that. so that you know what you're going to end up with. You have KPIs that you're going to measure to validate that the systems are doing what you want to do. And the biggest thing that really we see happening in the industry is, as you mentioned, is the people. That is the bottom line. It's involving how many people are in the space. It's involving the quality of the air, the comfort of the air, and just the physical environment of the space. You see a lot more money spent just on the, not even anything to do with the building systems, but the aesthetics of how those placed. So that gets into your garbage can sensors. There's a lot of crazy stuff obviously out there. But the reality is the people are, as you mentioned, that's where the study came in. Everybody focuses on energy. There's only so much you can squeeze out of energy. And then you can't do anything else. It's just making sure the systems operate as intended. But people, that's a variable scale. And if people are in that space, that adds additional cost to everything else as well. If they're not, you have to be able to reduce that cost.
Thank you for making the comment. There's more to smarter buildings than just energy savings. Thank you very much. Greatly appreciate it. Trevor, from your perspective, how are you seeing planning and designing a smarter building a little different than it was 5-10 years ago?
So COVID was, of course, a massive paradigm shift. It catapulted us forward from both operating and, to your question, planning and designing smarter building and MSI platforms and so forth. The paradigm shift was from what we describe as operating buildings for the benefit of systems to occupant-centric system design, right? So now, with COVID, of course, everything became how do we dump as much fresh air as possible, right? How do we maximize ventilation and so forth? But it also further shined a light on the movement from, prescriptive building design like LEED and so forth to occupant-centric building design to some degree, like well and fit well standards, which I'll submit are, entirely based on certain levels of IQ, biologically correct lighting, and frankly, stuff that we can control and optimize with smart building systems and controls.
Good. All right, on to another subject. Let me see who this, Gary, I'll pick on you now. What new personas, title types of people are becoming more involved in smarter building decisions and influence?
MSI.
Okay.
We've heard this really word going around for years. It means different things to different people. But I think what it means today is having that MSI at the top layer at the engineering onset to drive the customer, voice of the customer to make sure that everything's covered. One of our most successful retail customers has been doing this for years with us. They've got their MEPs, they reach out to us for program management help, and then ask us for best practices. And because of this, they continue to have an updated system that has low noise. It's future ready because we help them keep on the path of the whole MSI integration piece and how that works for them as a vendor from our perspective.
Ed, title types, what are we seeing?
We're seeing a lot of people, we're seeing a lot of people like the CTOs getting involved now, and frankly, CFOs. And I think they need to, because as you point the ROI, some of these things that we're doing, maybe there should be a lot more economic and financial analysis before the building even starts. And maybe we're not doing as much of that anymore. But again, I think we're seeing interest from the C-suite, but we have to make sure that it's in combination with all the partners on the team. But I'm seeing a lot more executive level where they're much more concerned about it. And frankly, there's a marketing aspect of this now. And I'm not the expert in that, but we're seeing a lot of people saying, well, I want my building smarter than that person's building. And I'm actually seeing some of that noise going around in the industry today. I think actually the marketing people, maybe perhaps the real estate people are doing that. I don't know that, but I sense that there's some competition that I've got to make mine better than the other one just for the sake of that. So I think when it comes down to it, though, they still got to have a budget and you got to live with it. And what are the outcomes going to be with that? So
just to add, yes, from a marketability perspective, having a building smarter, definitely maintains tenants and attracts tenants. You talk to the real estate folks who are tenant type based, they live and breathe this every day. They don't want buildings 50% occupied, 75% occupied. They want them 90, 95%, 100% occupied. Now, again, nice little leeway. This is working out. Yeah.
I want to add one more.
Please go right ahead.
Data scientist. Nobody's talked about any good point that. We're seeing more and more of that now because you need to understand how that data works, right? You know, and Joe in the boiler room is not going to care about any of that. He just wants to make sure the boiler's working, the chillers are working, the pumps are working. But as far as the financial impact of the organization, the data scientists really try to drill down into that data and help solve a lot of problems with the data as well. You know, there's issues from different systems, they bring it all together.
That's a great thing, isn't it? The whole time I've been doing this, it's been many years, I've only had one customer that had a data center.
Well, again, it talks about the people in our industry. That is a huge opening because, again, we can get the data. We know how to identify it. We know how to tag it and model it. We know how to do all of that stuff, the data. Here's the data. I don't know what to do with it. I don't have a person on staff, or they think they do, but that person does not know the building environment. They wouldn't know a set point from, a degrees or an alarm or whatever. So again, a huge need in our industry, data scientists. All right, Steve, over to you now. Is the value of a building impacted by how smart it is?
Absolutely. As long as it's marketed correctly. So, I mean, we have healthy buildings today, right? Commercial real estate firms leverage that very well, retainage and redesigning spaces. Our government customers, right, are willing to pay more on a lease, right, if they're meeting the sustainability goals, right, and the mandates. So we're seeing that. We have a lot of high-end government tenant customers that we do work with, and they're certainly paying higher leases from what we're getting feedback on due to that. So yeah, the short answer is yes.
Larry, value of a building?
Yes.
You're a building owner, so you should know firsthand.
Yeah, 100%. And I would actually combine Steve's answer with Paul's answer is the one group that's not included in this is actually that is now included is the HR component. I'll tell you why. I think when we're talking about smarter buildings, I think we keep thinking from an engineering and building automation control standpoint and analytics of all the building control systems. We're now transforming into workplace analytics too. So obviously now sensoring data, occupancy sensors. So now that's transforming into workplace planning and execution around the organization's mission. Where we're spending a lot of our time is, quite frankly, we're taking from smart buildings to smarter workplaces. And that's really the focus. So now we are seeing HR included in those conversations, not just because of the data that's maybe obtrusive to the employee or employee data of where they are in real time, but the behaviors and how they are able to achieve their mission in the organization. So when you say value, let's be real. What is it, 330, 300 rule, right? And you look at the 300 is really around people. You spend $300 a square foot on people, so why are we not focusing on people and the performance of it from an analytics standpoint? That is the most expensive component of your organization, the people. So yes, it absolutely impacts not only the value, but whether or not you're going to get people to come back to work. Because people go to work because they have to, they want to, and that's got to be the new norm. So you have to. Someone down there said it is about healthy work environments. If you're not paying attention to that in the smarter buildings environment, then you're thinking too small. The healthy work environment is single-handedly probably the most important component of the data that's coming into the building and the end user.
One of the terms that I've been using and use a lot now is creating commute-worthy buildings. Mm-hmm. To your point, getting people back, even though many organizations already started, whether it be 3 days a week, people are still bucking it at the end of the day. We know that. But again, as building people who create buildings, manage, maintain them, we have to create community-worthy buildings. That's the experience, that's all the stuff you guys are know, the pieces that can go in there. Now, one of the things, and let's go ahead and start with, Trevor. All right. How do you see risk and risk mitigation fitting into the conversation today?
Well, I guess there's no other way to answer that without, you can't talk about smart buildings and MSIs without talking about cybersecurity. So, essentially any poorly managed IP level devices, a backdoor into your organization's network. So the risk is almost entirely co-located in proper cybersecurity measures, not just in design, but, of course, during operation, throughout the lifespan of whatever system, whatever portfolio.
Richard, risk mitigation.
So excellent question. Maybe a little bit different from our perspective. So we're actually moving in a direction of starting to self-perform the controls work ourselves. And the big reason for that, there's several, but the big reason is risk mitigation, right? So when you engineer, design, construct a building and deliver it, the majority of time when there's issues, challenges, or problems, it's in the control space. And again, that's probably because we as AEs treat the control space as a black box, right? And just hand off some performer to a controls contractor and have them design it, right? So you then run into challenges, get the contractor back on site, it wasn't in the design, whose fault is it, right? All sorts of challenges and complications. So we're moving in a direction to get involved in that space, at least have more oversight and control involvement in that. And we see our commissioning group as the channel to accomplish that. And then also, of course, then the bridge to help clients on the receiving side of things through training and whatnot to understand what was actually delivered to them, right? So that's one part of risk mitigation. We still have some challenges in the space of, right, the client is always right. So we also have another industrial controls group, right, that does PLC industrial controls for a lot of our manufacturing clients and whatnot. Those clients tend to have staff, right, that are very well versed in industrial controls. And as a result of that, don't understand DDC or don't want to get involved. They don't know HVAC. And so they then ask us to actually integrate or design the control of HVAC through DDC, but from the industrial control side of things. And there's lots of challenges and problems with that too, right? So there's risk in that space too, but you have to then figure out a way to work through that with the client. To hopefully, end up with a solution that you're not introducing additional risk into the delivered facility or building.
Paul, comment on risk mitigation?
I think business risk, right? You built this building, and all this investment is depending on, right? And what's the strategy to bring in and potential of having downsizing in there for tenants that may not go into that facility? So a lot more on the financial side.
Well, the one thing I heard cyber and sort of related to the business side is, what's the risk mitigation to the occupants? Are we going to see lawsuits? Well, I've been going to work, all that, and they have not provided good, clean air or whatever. I'm suing you. And I think there is legislation being talked about that in the courts today. So again, different types of risk and risk mitigation, not just cyber, of course, that's first and foremost, but there's a lot more as well. And then also on the risk side is, I'm a building owner. I've got a business to run first and foremost. That's number one. Number two, number three might be the importance of the building side of it. We're way down on that list when it comes to a business owner's concept of how are they going to run their buildings, how are they going to profit, et cetera. Let's move on to another question. Ed, we'll go down that way. What do you think are the three, no more than three top things holding back the adoption of smarter buildings?
Money, first of all, right? They're more expensive. I think sometimes, like I said, they can be more expensive. So you got to take a look at that, the value of it. A lot of it's the people. I mean, everybody, there's some fantastic system integrators out there. And right now, I've talked to all of them here. They're all super busy. So again, it falls back to the shortage of people that can deal with the technology. I think those are the two key ones for me right now. I think that there's probably plenty more. Maybe somebody else can add to that.
Gary, top 3 things holding us back.
Favorite 3-letter word, ESG. Let me explain. It's very confusing for customers to understand what those 3 letters mean. So last year, we kind of jumped in with both feet and we actually hired for this position called sustainability advisor, which is another persona that we're starting to see on companies. We have that person now. And why do we do that? Well, because one of the things that's holding back is the education of people. So our sustainability advisor can help still educate our customers on what they need to do for ESG. We need to know about it first and understand everything about the ESG where our customers can even get to it, because most of them have time. So you've got the education component, you've got the adoptability or the money, right? What should I budget for? I think I'm going to rant a little bit. I think another thing that holds back this industry is shiny toys. You know, AI bolt-ons that claim ROI and they never deliver, and the customer gets regret spend. And so it's regret spend, so guess what they have next time? They have regrets. And they're slow to adopt. So I think we need to work on all these things as an industry to get better.
That's a good 2-word, regret spin. I like that. I like that. Paul, from your perspective, 3 things, and again, briefly.
I mean, I think they covered the main.
Okay, all right. I'm going to go to the whole panel for this. Richard?
Another excellent question. 3. Probably the number one I would say is a lack of communication or coordination between the operational side of the business and the capital delivery side. And again, we're right in the middle of it. I've literally been in meetings, right, at a client site, talking about some technology stuff with our project manager for utility infrastructure upgrades and the client's engineer, right? And the IT person is informing the rest of us on a project they have where they're ripping out certain meters across the campus, right? And this moment of almost panic between the client engineer and our project manager of what are we speccing for meters, right? And are we speccing the same meters that they're ripping out on the other side, right? So the operational side of the organization, right, and the capital delivery side, everybody's super busy. It's hard to, meet and discuss, but there's a disconnect there that has to be accomplished if you're going to get the building that you want delivered to operate, right, in this smart new reality. Number 2, the other thing that I've seen oftentimes is, which swinging back a little bit on the persona side, I would say the last 3 years, we've had more engagement with the sustainability part of an organization. And they have been the ones that have provided the funding and the direction for maybe a pilot or a proof of concept, get it stood up, and then it gets pushed out then to the operations side of the organization, right? But the challenge is everybody that's involved in the client side of things, they already have a full-time job. They already don't have enough hours, right? And so they take on then this additional thing and they're totally overwhelmed. They then move into a space of questioning whether or not the platform and technology is right or wrong for them when there's organizational issues that have to be considered before they can even make that decision. So those would at least be my top 2.
Okay, and Larry, I'm going to get to you in a minute, but as far as personas, one that just came to me that I started to see in probably 6 or 7 instances is a whole new title in our industry on the owner operator, Chief Smart Building Officer. All right, it's a mouthful. But again, I think that it brings in the sustainability or whatever, but start looking as you're conducting your business and operations, if that title starts to stick. Chief Smart Building Officer. Larry, top 3 things from your perspective.
Yeah, first I'll just emphasize smart buildings is happening to you whether you like it or not, right? The industry, I mean, like saying, hey, I don't want the internet in my house, right? It is happening to us. So either A, adopt it, embrace it, and and plan and implement for it, or you are going to be left behind. I always like to apply, the one thing that I always say is what comes back is, you apply Rogers adoption curve with every, implementation of anything in a society. There are either laggards and early adopters. And the early adopters, I think, are trying to get too far out in front of the next shiny object. I love what you said, Paul. And I think those who are progressive, and probably, meaning some of us in the room, we're talking smart buildings, are probably too progressive ahead and trying to get too far ahead of ourselves when we have the laggards who haven't adopted the change. So I think we're kind of our own worst enemy. And I think hitting in the middle, I'm going to go back to where I started the conversation at the beginning of the hour, was really about that organizational alignment. You're not going to change and adopt the organization for success of implementing it unless you have that organizational alignment. And I say it's the trifecta, and it's not just the facilities construction and CIO, but even the HR component now, because of the health and wellness and workplace analytics that are expected out of smart building. Let's be real, the workplace HR people don't care what your building control system is doing and whether or not you're saving energy. If that's a feel-good ESG moment, that's not going to help them with the performance of the health and wellness of the building. So those are two. The third thing I will go back to is the budget, and I think there is a fear factor of affordability. And Steve brought it up, is yes, they're more expensive. And I think unfortunately that's the mantra, but you can't look at it as more expensive. It's more expensive today, but it's cheaper in the long run if you operate it correctly. So I think I'll say as early adopters, right? We have to change that mindset, and we have to have a mind shift, because if we keep thinking and saying that these smart buildings are more expensive, I don't think there's an easy sell to any CFO in the organization that says, I'm going to adopt this. Why would I do it? It costs me more money at a time when, let's be real, what's going on in the commercial real estate market is we have empty buildings, people aren't going back to work. Why am I going to invest in a building or facility when people aren't coming to work? That's not an easy sell. So there's a budget and adaptability of the business case of making it, again, a place that people want to work at, not have to work at, that comes into play. And so I think as early adopters, we've got to change our mindset and our messaging on that, or it's going to be a tough sell, because it's happening to us with whatever automation or next shiny objects out there.
All right, I'm going to go ahead. Sorry, I'm looking at the time. I'm going to skip.
You have one quick.
Go ahead, please. If you have a comment.
Mentioned supply chain issues. And, I tell you, with lead times on equipment today being 9 months or beyond for chillers and things of that nature, mostly chip dependent, right? So we've got boards, we have chillers and equipment out there that are being manufactured. They don't have the intelligence in them to ship them out the door, right? So supply chain and the lack of domestically produced chips, right, I think is one thing that's prohibiting us from moving quicker into the smarter building aspect. Then, to segue on what we were talking about was net present value. We all do simple ROI, right? Simple payback, worst metric in the world, by the way. If we all learn to explain net present value to a building owner, they get it. They'll adopt the technology. They really understand how it's going to impact their bottom line. It goes back to the financial money, right? There's my three answers, money.
And I see too, and again, moderator prerogative here, is there's a huge feeling about fear of failing, first and foremost. Oh, it's great technology, I'm getting it, but I am scared I either choose the wrong solution or something, whatever, fear of failing. And the other is it's a mentality, it's an all or nothing. And we see great use cases and case histories out there. And let's face it, they're awesome. But the majority of the folks out there cannot afford, nor are these beautiful case histories applicable to them. Again, this is something, there's a place to start and continue on and scale. But again, this is all or nothing. Let's move on. Trevor, how about newer protocols? What are you seeing as far as newer protocols out there coming in to making buildings smarter?
Are you asking about like the communication language or about?
Whatever you want to say.
I'm going to answer the question I want to answer.
Okay, go ahead. He's bigger than me, so I'll let you. Yeah, go ahead.
Now you see the world of Trevor Morris.
Excuse me. So very brief, I was thinking with the last question, everybody ran through frankly, everything I just said in terms of through things and so forth, like I'm gonna actually mostly expand on things that Richard said in 5 different ways about the sort of confrontational way the construction industry is set up. But actually, what I want to talk about is entirely different, which is, we're in the controls and smart buildings in the MSI space in a unique challenge, but potentially generational opportunity in 2 regards. And one is reporting. And by that, I mean on both the federal side and the commercial side, there are, as we all know, these ESG requirements. And on the federal side, the president issued an order that he wants all 500,000 of his buildings net zero by 2047. It's kind of a challenge. Now, a lot of this boils down to, as I say, reporting. How are you going to get data into some mechanism, and what is that mechanism to prove out that you're reducing energy and emissions? Somebody has to build that tool. In the MSI space, a few of us have mentioned AMI, and several of us have worked on broad integrations where we have utility billing, or at least just electric data coming in through AMI meters that we put into a single dashboard or supervisor or whatever. And I submit to you that if I have that utility billing, I can build you a simple automated mechanism or whatever format you want to satisfy that ESG and federal requirement. And almost nobody's doing it. Very few people are actually working on that problem in my space. And the other generational problem that will grind to a halt the clean energy revolution is grid resilience. Now, as it relates to building controls, MSI, and so forth, if you have a network system of controls across multiple buildings and so forth, I submit to you that you now have control over a large amount of demand, which any utility will pay for. If you can give them a known way to reduce demand in edge of grid devices, A, it's a giant business opportunity because the aggregator will pay you if you can help them control that demand over time. And B, the grid is just not ready for the massive amounts of clean energy that are coming into it. And it's going to become a larger and larger problem. And frankly, to me, we represent the best opportunity for quick-term results.
All right, I have 2 more questions, then we're getting into the lightning round. Gary, let's start with you since you brought it up. Those 3 letters, ESG. No doubt, I think everybody will agree that those 3 letters are top of mind today in any type of building discussion, especially smart. What role does controls play in ESG?
Actually, it actually is part of every one of those letters. We do the energy part, we do the sustainability part. We're going to do the governance part. We got cybersecurity and governance. We got sustainability is environment, customer satisfaction, tenant satisfaction. Smart buildings do all of those things through those 3 letters. It's the same thing we've been doing for many, many years. We just call it something different today, right, Steve? But it now comes at a cost. It's got some teeth behind it. Government codes and other compliance measures are coming out against it. And for those 3 letters, so we have to do something about it as an industry to get ahead of it.
Ed, you want to comment on ESG?
Yeah, he brought it up great. A lot of it's going to be, is the reporting factor. The reporting factor that he brought up previously, that's very important to do that. But every part of that, the local laws in New York City now about energy and that sort of thing, all the data sitting there in the building, we hope it's good, clean, trusted data. That's the first thing. We have to have trusted data. But then we have to do, it's more about the applications. We've been talking about data lakes. So give me a good report that this tells me what it needs to be. And again, I think the emphasis is on, let's just get the report up there and hope we make the KPIs, but are we sweating the details of, what's a good sustainability report? Are there going to be some standards? I'd love to hear if there's going to be some standards that come out, for the standard ESG reporting that people will accept. But right now right now, all the corporations want to make sure that they have a really pretty ESG report, up on their website. Let's dig deeper and see, what's the real data we need behind that, and something below the CFO. What does the building manager today need to do with that data?
All right, last question. I definitely want all you guys to comment on this, but briefly, so we can get to the lightning round. Steve, we'll just go this way. Just pick up on each other after one finishes. Topic of the day. What are your thoughts on chat CBT in our industry? What are your thoughts on chat CPT in our industry?
So,
Speechless? No, not much. Never, not you.
never. It's again, kind of goes back to people's fears of privacy. I don't know, it's just a lot of data out there that we don't know what's going around. Check that, who's it belong to, who has a right to it.
Okay. Trevor.
So there's no magic bullet, whether it's digital twin, chat GPT is like somebody, if you're in a decision-making capacity and, some asset manager portfolio, whatever, someone's gonna come into your office and say, this AI bolt-on program with the chat GPT of the building automation space, and you should kick them out of your office, right? There is no magic bullet for the space. We take endless meetings with, the flashy new, as I say, digital twin, AI, ML, throw whatever letters you want on it. And if you aren't supremely confident that you have a perfectly run building automation system with well-trained operators that are currently optimizing your space, you should not look to bolt anything else onto that platform.
All right, again, Derek, real quick.
Well, it's just not a three-letter word this time. It's still got the same cringe to it. Do not be an early adopter. It's too much forerunner right now to the point, public and private data and stuff like that. Do not adopt it right now.
Paul?
I just think you can't take the human element out of things. I mean, you don't want a machine making every decision. It's great for supporting, but the human element still has to be there.
Richard?
Nothing to add from what's already been said.
Got it. Larry?
Flavor of the month, and if you all remember, IBM Watson. Yeah, haven't heard from that in a while, have we?
Yeah.
So flavor of the month, it's cool, shiny new object. It's been all over the news in the last 3 weeks.
Ed?
I actually ran a chat GPT that said, what's the difference between smart and smarter building?
Me too. What did you get? Yeah, me
It
too.
gave me it's a good text.
Yeah.
It's a good text treatise, and it wrote very clearly.
Yeah.
So right now, it's a nice letter writing device, but the mathematics behind it are brilliant, and I think sooner or later, the mathematics behind it, whether it's called Chat GPT, whatever, will finally, in years in the future, help us.
Okay. All right. This is my fun part. I really like this. Again, the only answer that you guys can get, don't start explaining stuff. We don't want to hear it. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Or you plead the fifth? All right. So, are you getting the question about the business and economic outcomes of a smart building? Let's go.
Yes.
Larry.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
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 All right, yes, okay. After 25 years, give or take, do we have more technology than we need? Steve?
No.
Trevor?
Yes.
Please get it.
Oh, that's good.
I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
No.
Larry?
Yes.
Yes.
Ed. So again, more tech, okay, good. Will the adoption of smarter buildings, occur faster than that of smart building? Ed?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
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 Cool. All right. Steve, we'll come back this way. Are the newer protocols such as MQTT, LoRaWAN, enabling buildings to be smarter?
Yes.
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 I'm going to plead the fifth.
Do you agree or disagree? It's not the same to deal with a single building, a campus, or hundreds of buildings in different cities and territories, nor is it the same to manage hospitals, public schools versus office buildings and so forth. Ed, back this way.
Yes.
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 100% yes.
Yes, good. All right, let's see, we'll come back this way. Should building occupants be able to interact with their surroundings versus just occupying them?
Complete the fifth on that.
Kind of a weird question. Yes.
Please, Fifth.
Yes.
As an engineer, I would say no.
This is painful for me.
I know.
I so badly want to say like what we really did, but yes.
Sort of.
Sort of, that's not an answer. Buddy. All right, let's move on. We got this next question. We kind of talked about it as far as AI, prop tech, ML, metaverse. We kind of beat that to Paul here. Let's go on to one. All right, Steve, we'll go that way again. Has a building's smartness replaced location as the key value measurement of choice?
No.
Definitely no.
Ooh, unanimous, like it. What about building smartness contributions to increasing the actual building's value when it comes to valuation and resale? Has it contributed to it, Ed?
Yes.
Yes.
Fifth.
And yes.
Awesome. And let's see here. All right, last question, and then you guys got 30 seconds to wrap this up, whatever you want to say. Are new standards helping drive the adoption of building solutions such as energy, the local law 97, some ESG standards they're working on, these types of standards that they're coming out with? Ed?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
No.
Yes.
We skipped to Trevor.
We say no.
Okay. All right, 30 seconds or less, and I'm talking. Ed, what do you want to say? 30 seconds, wrap up.
It's all about the people. Thank goodness we all just know it's smart people, not smart buildings.
Larry?
Start the adoption now, plan, communicate, and think about organizational alignment as the single most important phase of the planning. The second most important phase is planning for your people to be engaged with it.
Okay. Richard?
Our focus is, and these are my words, right? We're attempting to be part of the solution and not part of the problem, right? As Trevor also alluded to, right? The construction space, AEs, contractors can be a caustic and hostile environment. Working together is a challenge to get the right solution at the end. So that being said, we own historically, again, treating the control space as a black box. Not being more proactive and a part of that. So we're moving in a direction to again be part of the solution and less of a problem.
Paul?
Our point of view is basically, we want to make sure that something's going to have longevity with the building design. And I think what we find from a lot of the projects that we've worked on in the past, where we do integration work in new software platforms, is how bad the existing building systems are. No one's managed them. No one's updated any security out there. Nobody's even looked at a plan to replace them. And we find that the systems are just not capable of being required for cybersecurity.
Gary?
As an industry, the hip and hype certainly sells, but unfortunately it fails a lot and causes regret spending points. So be an advocate for your customer. Make sure that they understand what's real and relevant and kind of keep them in that lane until some of the other technologies can vet out with scroll and stuff. It's evaporated, so everybody understands what they're actually getting.
Trevor?
30 seconds.
As a cheerleader for the industry, the humble integrated building control system is the centerpiece and the keystone of our clean energy future.
Dave?
With over the years, we've all promoted open protocols, non-proprietariness, right? We all know that it's kind of a farce for years, right? Now today, with Dockers, containers, and APIs, we're there. Right? So we're going from smart buildings to smarter buildings. That's going to be the key to getting that, right? That's going to cost less. The other factors being, we need to market ourselves better, right? We're in the automation world, we're a cross between white collar and blue collar, and it's that perfect merge for kids coming out of high school. Nobody teaches that to them as they're coming up in the world, right?
Here on that.
Yeah. Thanks.
So again, will you guys join me in giving my friends and Marvel superheroes a night a warm round of applause?